an MVP. Every single team has an MVP. Whether you are the Montreal Canadiens or the Tampa Bay Lightning, there's a player on your team that stands out more than any other player on that team. So in this video, I'm going to be going through all 32 teams, and I'm going to be picking which player I think is their most valuable player on each team. So without further ado, I'm going to be going in alphabetical order in this list. So let's get straight into it, starting off with Anaheim. From Anaheim, it was a pretty easy decision. I ended up going with their goaltender, John Gibson. John Gibson, in 24 games, has a .914 save percentage. Now, people always said that John Gibson was playing better than his numbers. Like last year, I had a .904, and the year before, a .904 as well, I think. But people always said that he was playing better than his numbers. And this year, he's shown it. He's been great, and without him, the Ducks are not in the position they are in to make the playoffs because he's just been that good. Watching the game yesterday, he played great too. Against Vancouver, if you want to know what game it was, 2-1 overtime loss for Anaheim, sadly. But Arizona, one of the worst teams in the league. Who did I pick for their MVP? I picked Clayton Keller. Clayton Keller, in 30 games, has 10 goals, 13 assists for 23 points. And despite being on the atrocious team that he's on that allows a ton of goals, he's only at -4, which is actually pretty impressive, telling you that his defensive numbers are pretty good, but so is his offensive numbers, because his offensive numbers have bounced back from where they were last year. And he has been the standout player for them. Although their team, which is basically an AHL lineup, has been terrible, but Clayton Keller has not been. And from Boston, I picked Brad Marshad, who in 21 games has 11 goals, 16 assists for 27 points. When Brad Marchand is not in the lineup, their team just looks different than when he is in the lineup. It just does. Without that perfection line fully perfected, or whatever you want to say, it just doesn't look the same. Brad Marchand's grit, his offensive skill, everything, it adds so much to Boston, and he's just the standalone. He has to be their most valuable player. He has to be. From Buffalo, maybe a little bit of a controversial pick, but I've ended up going with a goaltender who's only played 6 games, and that's Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And that's because in those 6 games he's played, he's just looked so good, and he's the reason that they've won a few of those 6 games. His save percentage, a .932. I don't know if I already said that, but he's just been that good. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, once again, I don't know. Buffalo, obviously a bad team, but Pekka Luukkonen's performances in the few games he's played has proved to me that I think he's their most valuable player. From Calgary, I went with another goaltender. I went with Jacob Markstrom, who in 21 games has a .933 save percentage. Last year, Jacob Markstrom obviously had a down year, played good in Vancouver, signed him to that big contract, and he didn't exactly perform to expectations. And yeah, but this year, he's just completely bounced back, more than bounced back, playing the best hockey he's played in his whole career right now, and is the reason that, like John Gibson is the reason they're in the playoffs. Markstrom's the reason that Calgary is in the position they're in. And if Calgary wants to remain in the playoff picture, then they're going to need Markstrom to continue playing the way he has, because he, as well as offense and coaching, but he is the main reason that they are in the area they're in. From Carolina, I've picked dynamic offensive player Sebastian Ahu, who in 26 games has 15 goals, 17 assists, and 32 points. Ahu, it felt like last year he was a great player, and the years before a great player, but there was just more there. And this year he's really shown it. He's turned up that offensive game, and he's just been dynamic offensively, over a point per game quite a bit. He's probably on pace for 95 points, and he's just been fantastic. For Carolina, he's their most valuable player to me. From Chicago, there was really one player I had to go with here, and that was Patrick Kane, who, despite having a little bit of a lower offensive year than usual, still pretty offensive, about a point per game with 25 points in 26 games, but still has dropped off a bit. And despite all that, he is still their most valuable player. Still tries to play the most. Really, it just has to be him. From Colorado, and if you told me this at the start of the season, I would never believe you. But for Colorado, I have to go with Nazem Kadri. I have to. McKinnon's out. Oh no, what's going to happen? Kadri comes in, does amazing. In 24 games, he has 11 goals, 27 assists, 38 points. He has more assists than he has games, and he also has 11 goals. He's been fantastic, and he's still playing fantastic. Even though McKinnon's come back and take his role back on the Landis Cogratman line, Kadri's managed to continue playing well and continue this hot streak he's been on, because he, to me, has been their most valuable player this season. Even though Carol McCarr was close, I had to go with Kadri. They would have lost those games, more of those games, if it wasn't for Kadri's amazing performance on the Landeskog line. From Columbus, maybe a little bit of a controversial pick here, but I've gone with their goaltender Elvis Merzlikins. Merzlikins in 19 games has a .911 save percentage, and his save percentage has slipped actually over the last bit, but he had a hot streak at the start of the season, and that hot streak and everything, all this, it's the reason Columbus is in this chase right now, and if he wasn't there, think that Korpisalo would be the goaltender playing most of the games, and that would not go well. So this is a combination of Merzlikins playing solid, getting them some wins, stealing them some games at the start of the season, and their backup being Korpisalo, who if he was in net, they definitely would not have won the games that they have won this season. So he has to be their most valuable player. From Dallas, I actually went with defenseman Miro Heiskanen. 28 games, 4 goals, 14 assists, 18 points. He's really showed that progression this season. As an early pick in 2018, you want to see this progression. You want to see him get better. And this year, it feels like he's gotten better. After last year, he didn't really... Maybe his defensive game went up a bit. His offensive numbers didn't get much better. This year, everything's gotten better. Offense, defense, and he's just been a really solid player on that back end for Dallas. From Detroit, there were so many options on Detroit. There was Moritz Seider. There was Lucas Raymond. There was Dylan Larkin. But at the end, you could have gone anyway, really. You could have gone anyway, and I'm going to get roasted for the pick just as I would if I had gone any other way. But I went with Lucas Raymond. And let me explain why. I went with Lucas Raymond because Dylan Larkin, right? He had a couple of bad years. He had a couple bad years last year and the year before. Wasn't performing to expectations. Lucas Raymond comes in, and all of a sudden Larkin's numbers are great again. And I'm not saying it's all because of Raymond. I'm sure Larkin would have had a great season otherwise. But Raymond definitely helped out. Raymond himself is just under a point per game. And he's just been fantastic. And Detroit might have got the best player in that draft. Despite never winning a lottery or anything like that, they might have got the best player in the 2020 draft. And he's been amazing. From Edmonton, there were 2 players, obviously. I don't even need to say them. But I ended up going with McDavid over Draisaitl. Because McDavid, although they're tied in points and Draisaitl has more goals, it just feels like McDavid just drives that play more. Drives the play. He's so fast and so skilled if you watch a game, which I've watched every game pretty much because I am an Oilers fan. But if you just watch the games, you'll see that he's just amazing. And we already know this. You don't even need to watch the games to know that he's amazing. Because right now, I think he's the face of the NHL. So let's just admit it. He is. And, do I need to say anything? He's Edmonton's most valuable player. Come on. From Florida, I went with defenseman Aaron Ekblad. Aaron Ekblad, after getting injured last year, people were worried if he'd be able to keep up what he was doing, or maybe it would hurt his career a bit or hurt his play in the future. And it really hasn't. Actually, he's better. I think he's playing the best he's played in his whole career right now. 29 games, 8 goals, 16 assists, 24 points. His offensive numbers are the highest they've ever been. He's playing amazing defensively, and he's just been great all around for Florida. From LA, I went with another goalie here. I went with Jonathan Quick. By the way, guys, I did try to limit myself on goalies. I ended up getting 8 out of 32, so, 8 out of 32. There's still 24 players, so anyway, I went with Jonathan Quick for LA. In 19 games, he has a .923. And it's sort of like the Merzlikins situation in a way with the backup goalie not performing very well and Cal Peterson. And he's also hurt right now. But Quick, it's not only that, because Quick has turned back the clock to his prime years. Because he might be having the best year of his career, if I'm being honest. And he has his numbers, a .923 save percentage in 19 games, that's just impressive. I don't know where LA would be without him. They certainly would not be in the conversation to even be close to a playoff spot because Jonathan Quick has just been that good. And I think he's one of the leaders in the goals saved above expected. He might be, and it's odd. It's like the Fleury situation last year where Fleury decided to wait till he was 36 to have a Vezina caliber season. Well, apparently, so did Jonathan Quick. Minnesota, the easiest pick of this whole list, I'm not going to lie. I went with Kirill Kaprizov. 30 games. Oh, damn. Big voice crack right there. 30 games, 12 goals, 24 assists, 36 points, and he adds energy to that team that they didn't have before he was there. Minnesota doesn't look like the old Minnesota, the trap team Minnesota, because of Kirill Kaprizov. Kirill Kaprizov, such an energetic player, such a dynamic player. When he's on the ice, you know he's on the ice. His offensive numbers show that as well, because he is just fantastic to watch. From Montreal, and we go from the easiest team on this list for finding an MVP to the most difficult one. Like I said at the start of the video, even Montreal has an MVP. Sort of. I had to go with one because I didn't really know who to go with. At one point, I was like, Jake Allen? I mean, his numbers aren't great, but you know what? He's hung in there. He's been playing without Price. Suzuki, maybe playing below expectation, but so is every single person on Montreal right now, except for a couple. Drouin, nope, I settled on Toffoli. I settled on Tyler Toffoli for their MVP. On a good contract right now. He's been playing very well, considering everybody else on the team is not playing well at all. But yeah, it was to be Toffoli, I guess. I mean, comments, tell me if you agree with that pick. I honestly didn't know who to go with for Montreal. That was a real struggle. From Nashville, there were a couple on Nashville I could have gone with. It was between Saros and Yossi, and I ended up going with Yossi, who in 30 games has 10 goals, 19 assists for 29 points. This year, he's back to that Norris caliber season. In fact, I think he was a favorite for the Norris when they showed the score or Sportsnet. They released their Norris rankings and stuff, and I'm pretty sure Yossi was actually first in the last one. But he's been amazing defensively. That just shows you how good of a season he's been having and how valuable he is to that defense on Nashville. From New Jersey, I ended up going with forward Jesper Bratt, who this year is proving what we all knew, and that more ice time equal more points for Jesper Bratt. Because Jesper Bratt in 30 games has, where's his stats? 9 goals, 18 assists, 27 points. He's been fantastic. Jack Hughes was gone. He was taking on the load. He's getting a ton of points. And yeah, he's just a great player. There's not much to say. Most valuable player on New Jersey. From the Islanders. Islanders would have been just as difficult to pick an MVP for them as Montreal if it wasn't for Ilya Sorokin, who in 19 games has a .926 save percentage. Sorokin is the reason that Islanders aren't as far down in the hole as they are. There's a little confusing sentence there. Sorokin has been so good despite his team being so bad. I don't know if they will actually end up bouncing back. This might just be a throwaway season for the Islanders. But if it's not, you can thank Sorokin for keeping them in it for as long as they are. And they're not even in it, but things could be much worse right now without him. For the Rangers, I went with another goalie whose first name also starts with an I. I went with Igor Shesterkin, who in 19 games has a .934 save percentage. Shesterkin, just like Sorokin, just like Gibson, just like all the other goalies I mentioned on this list, is the reason that they are where they are. Rangers are winning games that they shouldn't be. A lot of the time. You'll watch their game sometimes and you'll leave the game and you'll be like, how did they win that? And honestly, the answer is pretty simple. Igor Shesterkin, who I think right now might be the greatest goalie in the NHL this season. Vasilevsky is the greatest goalie in the world, but this season I think it might be Shesterkin. It's close though. You could argue for a few goalies right now, actually. From Ottawa, I ended up going with forward I needed a second to regain myself there. For Ottawa, I went with forward Drake Batherson. Drake Batherson on an Ottawa team that's also been pretty disappointed. Batherson has not been. His contract at the time it was signed, it was like, okay, we'll see. And now it looks like it's going to be an absolute steal of a contract because he has been amazing. His offensive capabilities have just gone up so much this season from where they were last season. I didn't think he had this in him. And I don't know how long he can keep this up. Can he go over a point per game in an 82-game season? I don't know. But so far this season, no question for me. It's definitely not a goaltender for Ottawa. So it's got to be Drake Batherson as their most valuable player. For Philadelphia, I went with the only player who I feel is not disappointing. A lot of disappointing teams you notice on this part of the list. The Islanders, Ottawa, Philadelphia, Montreal. Yeah, there's been quite a bit actually. But anyway, this disappointing team, Philadelphia, I went with Claude Giroux, who in 30 games has 11 goals, 15 assists for 26 points. Claude Giroux is one of those few players on Philadelphia, maybe the only player, who is actually performing up to expectation. He is playing very well. He actually just passed, I don't know who it was, but he passed someone on a list, and now he is second in goal scoring or points on Philadelphia franchise history. But this season alone, Claude Giroux has been very consistent and definitely Philadelphia's most valuable player. From Pittsburgh, I did go with another goalie here. I went with Tristan Jari, who in 24 games has a .932 save percentage. Tristan Jari, he's put up great numbers this year, and it's funny because last year was at the end of the playoffs was when like everybody was like, oh, Pittsburgh, they need to get better goalies and stuff. And trust me, I was also on that same boat, and I was really surprised when they didn't do anything about their goaltending situation. But it turns out that was the right move because both Jarry and DeSmith have been great this season. And if Jarry can play like this in the playoffs, then that would be even better and give Pittsburgh a chance at a cup. But just like all the other goalies, like I said last time, Jarry, the reason that they are making the playoffs. Every year I say Pittsburgh's not making the playoffs. Pittsburgh's not making the playoffs, and I predict them to miss the playoffs, and they prove me wrong every year. And every year there's that player, usually Sidney Crosby or Malkin, that's like, you know what, we're making the playoffs. And this year, Jarry is that player. San Jose, could have gone with another goalie here. Just like, there's a lot of goalies actually on this list, but I didn't. I went with Timo Meyer, who in 26 games has 13 goals, 18 assists, 31 points. Timo Meyer has stepped his game up an unbelievable amount. I'm pretty sure last year was a little bit of a disappointing year for him, I think, if I remember correctly. But this year's not a disappointing year for him. Greatest year of his career so far. And definitely San Jose's most valuable player. From Seattle, I have gone with goaltender Philip Grubow, who in 26 games is losing a lot and has an .880, just kidding, save percentage. He's been terrible and definitely probably their least valuable player and probably worst contract on their team right now. I'm not going to say probably. Worst contract on their team right now. Who I actually went with for Seattle, though, is Jordan Eberle, who in 29 games, 12 goals, 9 assists, 21 points. I've watched Seattle games here and there, and Jordan Eberle always stands out to me. And I feel like he could have more points than he has. I've seen him hit a lot of posts. I've also seen Donskoy hit a lot of posts and a lot of misses. He doesn't have a goal yet, but that's not what I'm talking about. Jordan Eberle looks like he's playing great for Seattle and looks like he's been a great pickup. Also, surprised that the Islanders just let him go. That might be another reason why they're second right now. But from St. Louis, I've picked Tarasenko. Tarasenko in 32 games, 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points. Obviously had the shoulder surgeries. And a lot of people wanted in Edmonton town over here, wanted to trade for him while we could and while he was cheap because I think they were willing to give him up for half price and stuff. But now they're not, obviously, because he's been amazing. And as he's been amazing, I think this proves it because now he's on my most valuable player list. Meaning, I think that Tarasenko is the greatest player on the St. Louis team right now. So why would St. Louis trade him? Why would they trade him when he is their greatest player on their team right now? From Tampa Bay, I've picked defenseman Victor Hedman. I know, I could have gone with Andrei Vasilevsky, but I didn't want to go with another goalie. And also, I felt like Hedman and him were close. I know, I feel bad for Vasilevsky because you got Hart candidates on that team, Norris candidates, and and he's a Vezina candidate. So it's a pretty good team. But Victor Hedman, 31 games, 7 goals, 26 assists, 33 points. Probably going to win the Norris this year. Over a point per game, which means he's very good offensively and defensively. I think he's the best defenseman in the league right now. From Toronto, could have gone with another goalie. I feel like I say this every time. Guys, I could have gone with a goalie. I did go with a goalie. Could have gone with a goalie. There's a lot of goalies that you can pick with, which is why I tried to limit myself. But I went with Austin Matthews, who in 27 games, 20 goals, 13 assists, 33 points. And Austin Matthews got off to a slow start, but he's been playing amazing. His goal scoring has gone up a lot. He's been scoring at like a goal per game recently. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him end with 70 goals because he's just been that good for Toronto. From Vancouver, one of the teams that was actually one of the easiest, I went with goaltender Thatcher Demko. Over the 7-game winning streak, Thatcher Demko has been amazing. And throughout the season, he's been amazing. Throughout the season, before the 7-game winning streak, the numbers just didn't show how good he was playing. Because the amount of chances Vancouver, high-quality chances, let me say, that Vancouver allowed on him was insane. And Demko was just, he was keeping Vancouver from... well, I wouldn't say that, but his numbers suffered because of how bad the chances were on him. And I think he's one of the most underrated goalies in the league. But over the 7-game win streak, he's just been so good. He's been having a .958 save percentage over the 6 games that he started in the 7-game winning streak. And I think he's the main reason. Also, the change of scenery, the change of game plans the Vancouver Canucks have had and systems. But I think he's the main reason the Vancouver's had this win streak is because of how good Thatcher Demko's played. From Vegas, only 3 teams left, Jono. 3 teams from Vegas, maybe a controversial one because he's played only half the season, but Max Pacioretty, who in 16 games, 12 goals, 9 assists, 21 points. Max Pacioretty's been great in the games he started. He's playing like probably best season he's had in his whole career, just like a lot of players on this list actually, but Pacioretty's been very good for Vegas. From Washington, another team that was very easy, was no other than Alex Ovechkin, who we're waiting to pass another player on the power play goals list or whatever, but it feels like he's passing marks all the time, just all the time. But Ovechkin, 32 games, 22 goals, 26 assists, 48 points, and everybody says he doesn't pass a lot, that's why he gets all these goals. Maybe in the past, but now, look at those, more assists than goals. But he's just been so good, and it seems as he gets older, he gets better. Just like Marshad and Bergeron and all those guys. As he gets older, he gets better. And that's the case this year, because he's been amazing. Probably best year of his career. Feels like I say that for every player. I said that for Pacioretty as well. Last team. Keep it together. Winnipeg, I went with Kyle Connor. I'm sorry, Winnipeg fans, if you've sat through this whole thing. That sounds like pain. But Kyle Connor, 30 games, 18 goals, 14 assists, 32 points. A lot of goals, a lot of points. I have, for the last few years, thought he's the best offensive player on the Jets. And I still think he is the best player on the Jets. Just forward defense, just best player. And as this list shows, I think he's their MVP. So, that's the whole list. 32 teams. Done. That was a long... This is my second time shooting it, too. Because the last one I thought was okay, but meh. Yeah. Alright, well, thank you for watching, if you're still here. And I will see you in the next video, which I don't know what I'm going to be doing for that yet.